Welcome. Welcome to Children's Literature and Reading Support. Please note this is examination based, but you also need to go through your materials, as I'm going to tell you that I only made short bullet notes so that you can just have the main idea. So I gave you basically the short scheme, like a brain map. Now, if you need to contact me, my phone number is 0811 281 431. You can phone me between 5 and 8 during the week, and then please, you are also welcome to mail me, and my address is on our notes. Now, welcome. As I've said, this is really a super subject, but you need to familiarize yourself with a few interesting and important facts and concepts. Now, in short, we will use the term CLRS for our subject. And please note, preparation is very important. Study all you need to know. And please do not just study this presentation. As I've already mentioned, it is only short notes, and you must familiarize yourself with the whole subject, all the content. Now, before we start, I would like you to look at what is a reading culture. Before you go into your material to study further, make sure you know all the terminology and definitions. Now, a reading culture, this is a learned practice. You need to know that, because a learned practice is seeking knowledge, information, or entertainment through a written word. Now, if I need to know something, I will go on the internet, or I will page through my study guide or certain books just to get the correct information. And by this, we are busy with a learned practice. Now, remember, for smaller ones, for children, it's quite difficult, as some of them cannot learn. Then you are there to guide them. Now, how do I create a reading culture? How can you encourage that? Let us look at that. But please note, you must be able to name at least 5. Please don't get confused. By naming them, you will also enhance yourself by being better equipped to know what to answer. Now, encourage the parents to set the example by reading themselves, and you as teacher demonstrate reading acts or refer to something that you have read. For instance, you read the story to the class, you retell it, or you've read the story at home and you retell it. It's the same, but the child gets to shape and form his own pictures while you are reading or retelling the story. Make sure your children read every day. In a pre-primary situation, they pretend to read by paging through familiar storybooks. They love to page through and just look at the pictures maybe. And remember, already it helps them to make a conversation between two, because they will point at the pic or the certain picture and discuss it. Then possibly identifying then familiar words. Maybe they can recognize small words like pick, or just a tin or something like that is in the story, or a flower. Then the whole time is practice. That is also a reading culture, to practice. Join a library is another way. Make a library in your class. Make it available for them to read. But remember, when you make a library, don't just put books down. Make it colorful and inviting to them. Read aloud to the learners, and set it a little bit of time on the side of the day for reading out loud. 10 minutes a day is a huge impact on any child. Then read books that you like and the children. There can always be a fun aspect in it. Give books as gifts. That is also a way of creating a reading culture. Make reading a privilege. Because you help tidying the classroom, now we have time to read. Children love that. Then make sure children have an inviting spot, as I've mentioned earlier. You can have a colorful beanbag there, or a nice rug, or pillows, or even just a small colorful reading desk where they are allowed to go sit and have a nice quiet time. Make sure there is opportunity for children to use that reading area. You can even promote that and say, since you have such good manners and you did your work excellent today, you may read during second break. Give them that special time, or after class, in class time. It does not matter when, but just give him or her the opportunity. Use humor. Often kids will respond well to a book that uses humor at their level, but be persistent. An uninterested learner won't change overnight. Not everybody loves reading because they see it as an effort. So you as the teacher can maybe guide them and make them interesting towards the book. Then use signs and put it on display where they can read about that. Maybe a slogan such as learners who read succeed, or any quote that is interesting and very, very positive. Notices of reading events, challenges or incentives in the school, visiting authors at the school, or book awards will also create a reading culture. Photos of children in the reading corner or staff that reads, even if it's the newspaper, that is their role models, even their parents. Then the principal can recommend the book of the week, maybe by promoting it during assembly or when they are gathering in the mornings. They can use that time to promote a special book. Now, signs pointing to the library, this can quite be interesting but also create a reading culture. Making footprints to your library or making colorful dots with the alphabet A, B, C. The children will walk on the dots, but it's interesting how they can use actually the alphabet to get to the library. Now, they can even count how many steps. At the end, they will realize the alphabet has got 26 letters. Then, the library opening hours. Learners on duty can assist the children and tell them, this is for the junior primary, this is books that only got pictures for pre-primary. A library quiz of the week can assist the children. Children can come to the library to find different answers. Maybe there's a puzzle or there's another crossword puzzle, things they like. Then learners can work about books, maybe in art, inspired by books. They have a nice picture of different painters that they can page through, and then they can go and try themselves to make a similar picture. Then information about new books coming up. It can be displayed somewhere, or you can just mention it again. Let the principal have that week of the special time where they introduce new books. There are so many ways to create reading cultures. Now, the quote about reading, favorite opening lines of the books to get them interested. Maybe the library teacher or anyone can just read a part of the book and say, now, I'm not going to read up to the end, maybe in half or just the first few pages to get them interested. Then they will go to the library to find out, what can I find out, what happened to this character or that character at the end. Signs to show anyone visiting that the principal thinks reading is important. Quotes, favorite children's books, learners. If a child has read excellent book, he can even retell the story. Now, we also include here the principal's reading during the school-wide sustained silent reading, the SSR, as we showed in short like that. That is when a child sits quietly in class and they read silently, but the teacher does not reprimand or assist or help him to read correctly. Even if he does not understand the word, he still sits and read, or she. This period includes then the whole school, where they read softly to themselves. Then reading aloud every day helps children very much to get some vocabulary. It helps them with phonics. It helps them with sight words. It's endless. So reading out loud as a teacher is very, very important. But also for the children to read loud back, it's also very important so that you can pick up, does he or she really understand or be able to pronounce a word even. Making time for your learners to read. Create that into your lessons that the child can be able to read. Having plenty of great books on display, that means either in your class or maybe you as a teacher has got a lot of books, or take them out on an outing to a library. That will be also super and help to create a reading culture. Sharing your own reading and reading in front of learners is very important. Now, it can be either a teacher, you as the teacher can share, or you can read in front of the learners, or one of your best learners or one who can read very good can read in front of the class out loud instead of the teacher reading the whole time. Then learners should hear stories, share recommendations, discuss books, use the library as a class, and it's very important to go there independently also. Remember, you can even play audiobooks to the children that they can listen. Even if you have different groups, use that different materials to enhance a reading culture. Then talk about what they have read last, what they are reading now, and what they are going to read next. Some kid says, I like Enid Blyton, the author. Maybe they are interested. Assist them to get more books about the author he or she likes. Have buddy readers. Some will be reading mentors or reading champions in the school, but some kids really need a reading buddy who is not so familiar with the words and a little bit shy. So a reading buddy is an excellent idea to get a reading culture in the school. Have books with them during waiting times. Now I wait for mommy instead of just wait. I can also sit and read quietly. Having a library that is well resourced, well staffed, and well used is really enhancing a reading culture. Then teachers collaborate with the librarian or use the library as an essential resource, either in a class group or independently. Remember, a library also has got audiobooks or cassettes or CDs that they can listen to. Teachers and the learners promote books at assemblies or in class will help the children to really go and use the library. Now let's look at the following question. Name or describe skills and strategies applicable to pre-primary reading. Now remember, we concentrate now on pre-primary, but you take the information that is according to your DJPE or pre-primary course. Then reading aloud focuses on rhyme, rhythm, and or repetitions. Increasing your vocabulary by playing games. It's very important, even not only in pre-primary but in junior primary, to play games to increase vocabulary. Point out to words. That can even be a game. Let the child run and show on the wall where's the word, say for instance, cat. One child can show the picture cat, but the children must be interactive with one another. Warm and supportive class atmosphere is very important. Allow the learners to carry out steps in recipes, built in time for listeners to respond. Now remember, the whole time, the children must be active and part of everything. Then, encourage predictions. Let the child predict what will happen next. As I've mentioned, I only made short bullet notes that's got the main idea. You must still please elaborate more. Introduce a book to the group. Preview the book before it is read to the group. Never ever just read a book or give it to the children if you did not read it as a teacher. Watch your audience. Do they enjoy it? Are they frowning? Are they happy or not? Encourage discussions about this story. Now, what does this reading process entails? As I've said, where does it come in? It helps to develop word recognition and comprehension, but in a fluent manner. Reading must be viewed as a social act. Remember, you share with your peers, your friends, your family, and they would like to go home and say, oh, mommy, daddy, this story was read to us today. It's about the 3 little pigs. Now, if a child will not learn the new words or vocabulary if you don't use that and explain to them what it is. The child must be able to appreciate the pleasures of reading. Children must be really comfortable with a variety of different forms and genres, and see to it that reading is an opportunity to explore their interest. If a child is interested in boats, let him read about boats. Don't say, no, we do the 3 pigs now. Read widely for a variety of purposes. Then, enjoyment will happen and they will gather information. However, if reading is not based on a life experience, pleasurable or fulfilling, they won't read. If it's a story about school, they will be interested because they are in the school at the moment. But if it's a story about people in a in town working in a building, children are not interested in that. Rather about friends or animals and something interesting that is on their level. Children need to know where to start to read the page. The child will need to remember the many rules. For example, the silent K in knife. We don't say knife, but knife. Then, the child will need to learn that letters and combinations of letters are also said with different sounds in speech. Remember, phonemes are very important. We know how many, there are 26 letters only, but there are more sounds than 26 letters. It requires the upper and lower case letters. A child must be able to decode, and they must get the meaning from the words that they read. The child needs to have a sense of directionality and to recognize the different size, shapes, and positions of the written word. Now, let's look at how to explain the purpose of playing reading games in the pre-primary or junior primary classrooms. Remember, you may adjust it to your whatever your needs are to see this game will work. And please note, if it's pre-primary based, it must be on their level. If it's junior primary based, it must be on their level. You must be able to describe, for instance, one idea with a game for an exciting literacy lesson. See how you can make it interesting. Mention also how you will be able to promote this game for literacy. There are many different types of activities you can plan for a pre-primary classroom or a primary classroom, and to prepare the children to learn. The reading activities will give them a foundation that is so necessary to become an independent learner. Now, activities and tips will optimize your lesson. Remember, mostly in the mornings, a morning circle. When you have a carpet, if you don't have a carpet, use cushions for them to sit on comfortably, and then you have a little circle in the morning where you talk to them. The activity in class means I'm working with them. Then provide them. You as a teacher can read out loud. They can read out loud. You can ask questions and they can interact with you. This is one activity in the morning. Now, how does it enhance? Remember, we said we want to enhance our literacy by talking, by if the child says, for instance, he pronounces the word wrongly, you can help him there. Immediately the other kids will go and shape it with their lips because they know that is the correct way to say, for instance, it's not with, but with. They will do it all softly, you will see. Now, introducing children to the printed world will richly illustrate picture books, and well-written stories will enhance them also. Remember, this will instill a lifelong love for reading for them. Now, how does a child learn? By songs. A class, morning songs is very important. A whole class can benefit when they all sing together. Start every morning then with a song. I just give you an example. You can have your own song. This is just an idea. For instance, hello, how are you? While they sing, you as a teacher can point to the words so that they can read the words. Remember, pre-primary kids won't be able, but they can recognize the size and the shape. And later on, they will be able to maybe point at the word you or hello. Now, how are you today? I'm fine. I hope you are too. So the song carry on. Then at the end, shake their hands today. Immediately you give your child an instruction. Now, the concept of he or she is grasping there is, now I must turn and shake the hand of my friend. Can you see you incorporated actions there, but it's actually an instruction that they know, now I must shake my friend's hand. Or you can use the sight words, bananas. This is a very nice game. The kids love to have it, where you have the monkeys with the bananas with the words on. Now, you can either buy or make the monkeys and write the sight words on their tummies, and add the bananas to some of the monkeys without words, and then laminate them all. Laminate just helps them to make it more easily to glide when they are playing. Then that's also a type of game. I've just mentioned it in short. You can go further and see what fits with your class group. artful artists. The children love to be creative. Let them make a huge H or the letter A. It does not matter. But then you play a little game, make a little face to the letter and say, here comes Harry Hatman or the letter H. This worksheet prepares the kids for reading by getting them familiar with a letter that starts with the word hello, house and hand. I can even go back to my song and ask them, do you see the sound there? And they will be able to say hello, how, and so forth. Now, remember, complete this always an activity by doing it colorful. By using color, you add more memory and you enhance that also. Now, let's look at the role that literature play in developing learners' moral values. Please note, you must be able to discuss this. They must know what is a moral and how you can incorporate that. Now, moral decisions are made every day in classroom across the world, across the country. Since children thinking is influenced by the activities in which they are engaged, the use of children's literature to stimulate moral thinking and moral development has great potential. For instance, if I have a story about say for instance trees, the big tree and the small tree. Now maybe the big tree can have make more shadow on the little tree when the sun is burning on it by showing, but talk in that voice also, I'm caring about you, so the sun is very harsh. Then I'm actually protecting the little tree. What is the moral here? We look out for smaller ones. So meaningful decisions can be made only by the child. It is logical, therefore, to help children develop a means of making constructive and beneficial moral decisions. You can even ask your child, what do you think? Why did the big tree cover the small tree? After you've read the story. Then let them come up with a moral aspect. Children's literature and stories in basal reading programs can be used to develop moral awareness. The moral dilemmas posed for story characters can be identified by reference to categories of moral issues. Development occurs in a sequence of stages. Books can have a silent message also within the story. For instance, if the book does not have a good moral, I won't read it to my children. If it has a good moral, I will read it to my children. Be careful, sometimes some books only focuses on one thing. For instance, mommy must stay at home and just work and clean the house. So she's not allowed for instance, to go and work one day. That means girls are supposed to stay at home? No, it does not mean that. This book does not have a good moral because ladies are also allowed to go and work one day. So a silent message can be one, for instance, that the mother stays at home the whole time and just do the cleaning. Now, discussions of moral dilemmas in children's literature provide a rich source of interaction that could help children to clarify the basis for moral decisions and facilitate the development of higher levels of moral reasoning. Some children will say, but no, that is good for a mother to stay at home, especially when there's babies or small children. So there they start to reason. And then they can say, afterwards when the babies are bigger, mommy can go and work. See, that is allowed because children are allowed to reason out. Children's literature provides a rich source of examples of moral decisions for children to discuss. Children can learn a wide range of social values and behavior practices from the ideas and images put across. For example, by popular television entertainment, glossy magazines, internet, there's endless examples. Many times, these sources of socialization compete against the role of parents and the family. You taught your little baby brother or sister, please do not do that. We are not allowed, for instance, let's take an example. You're not allowed to jump on the couches. But in the story, the little bunny jumps on the couches. Can you see? So that is why we must be very careful and say, actually, that is wrong. So we need to tell the kids when you read that part. Now, these can influence the moral standards, including attitudes towards the family or their belongings, and the support for gender equality. And beliefs about appropriate ethical standards in a public life, that you always must respect a grown-up. There are different morals that you can bring in with the stories. Remember, as well as shaping a broader religion values, that we respect still each other, no matter who and what you are. Regular exposure will have a particular influence role upon impressionable young children during their formative years and to adulthood. Books that are read to children, or books that page through, can remember have a silent message. That's why I say a teacher always need to read the book before you give it to your children. Never ever give a book to a child and just say read it. You must know, is it really a good book? Remember, like I gave you the example, for example, if the mother in a story always stays at home, cleans and look after the baby, they receive the silent message that is the role of the woman. And that is where the teacher comes in and explain, or where they had the discussion. They will assume a doctor will always be a male, for instance, which is not right. Moral values are also usually silent messages in stories. So make sure that your moral value in your story is applicable to your class. Now, let us look at psychological needs that literature can satisfy in a pre-primary phase or a junior primary phase. Information and knowledge. What is it doing to us? Physical security. Now, this is only bullet points again, as I've mentioned, so you need to elaborate. If I say name it. If you need to discuss, you need to elaborate a little bit more. Now think of yourself here. Psychological needs. How can that satisfy the literature? What is really important? Information and knowledge that I can gain. Physical security. Emotional security. Humor and escape. If I take up a book and I want to read, is it really going to help me give me some to escape from my work situation, that I can relax? Is it humorous? Is it acting morally correct? Aesthetic development, understanding him or herself and other people, and success. I mean, books that's having information can give you success, because I've succeeded, I've really gained some experience or information on a certain topic. Then fantasy, does it help me to daydream? Imagination. Children listen to stories, tell stories and point at things, point at pictures. Ability to communicate and interaction is very important. Now, please note, phonological awareness and phoneme awareness are two very different concepts. Please make sure you know the difference between them, distinguish between these two concepts. Phonological awareness is when a child becomes aware of the fact that spoken words are made up of sounds. Phonological awareness can then take the form of rhyme, syllabus, or awareness of the onset of words. It is also essential to the process of learning to read, and it is necessary for a child to understand that the letters in the written word present phonemes in spoken words. That is the alphabetic principle. Understand that the letter N stands for the sound N by itself is not phoneme awareness. Children need to understand that, for example, the word handle has an N in it, as well as other words, and the N will be the same there. At the end of alone, and at the beginning of 9, for example, and in the middle of 9. Now, children also need to know that, for instance, wait is made up of 3 phonemes, w, a, t, wait, and that the word pull and map both contain the phoneme soft p. Children know that phonemes are the building blocks of spoken words. These building blocks can be rearranged and substituted to make different words. Now, I need you to really study this and know the difference between these two concepts. Remember that phoneme awareness facilitates also later in a reading acquisition, and reading failure can be linked to a lack of phoneme awareness. If a child cannot read, you can go and check. It will definitely be he does not know phoneme awareness, so there was a lack there. Phoneme awareness goes beyond phonological awareness by placing the emphasis on the individual phoneme within a word. For instance, ship, sh, ship. Phoneme awareness skills include the ability to isolate a phoneme. Let's look at the first letter or the first phoneme, sh, or maybe it's cat, it's k, at, cat. First, middle, or last. Then, just make sure you do understand those two concepts very well. Identify criteria for evaluating the suitability of pre-primary literature. Please, students, I need to bring your attention here again. Read your question. Identify criteria for evaluating the suitability of pre-primary literature, not the learner's literature. It's a lot of you turn this question around and rather evaluate a learner. It's not about that. Here we need to look at literature itself. Now, books that reflect everyday familiar things to children, you might ask yourself questions about the book. Can the learners enjoy this? Remember, it's all about a book, literature. The illustrations, are they complementing the text? Is it theme related? How is for instance, if I take the book for small children, it won't be tiny script, it must be a large format so that the kids can read easily. And remember, not the funny A like the computer makes it, but the proper round A, that's round with a line. Then, does the book stretch the child's attention? Does the story avoid the gender, race, or is it stereotype? Then, you can always have a checklist to support you. My checklist, I can tick off. Is this book interesting? Yes or no? Tick it off. Is there conflicts that the children can explore? And how are these conflicts resolved? If it is with a crime or a war scene, I mean, that's definitely not for small children. Characters, there must be a variety of culture groups that they all feel part of the story. Remember, there must be males as well as females in leadership roles. The theme, how is the theme? Is the theme an easy theme or a difficult theme? How is the setting? Is it urban or suburban realistic, or is it just straightforward, or is there something that they can think about? Then the culture settings, is it the proper culture settings? Then also remember, is it age appropriate? Is there values in the book? This is how you can still identify literature. Now, think always of a small child as if you speak to maybe a cousin, or to maybe you have a small brother, sister yourself. Think of him or her when you are doing this question or answering this by identifying the criteria for evaluating literature for a small child. Now, illustrations must be diverse populations. And we must, again, I want to emphasize this, age appropriate and values that must be in the book. Now, let us look at how certain ways to develop their attention can be described. How can I remember what was read? The retention of what was read means, is there a way that I can remember? Now, let's see. Children can be active participants in reading stories. For example, doing actions. If the wolf is blowing, let them go together. Turn the page while the teacher reads the group. Let the child allow, while you sit with them on the carpet, allow them to turn the pages. Let them draw pictures afterwards or make characters as artist projects. You can even dramatize the story. Or Peter, you can be the wolf. James, you are this. The girls can be maybe Little Red Riding Hood. So use your children, incorporate them in your stories. Keep the books then in a reading corner and put out similar topics. You will see, if you read them a story about animals, they will be more interested. Maybe there's children that are more interested in sharks or have more books like that on display. Write a journal, discuss the meaning of some words, and the teacher and children can make graphic organizers and they can draw pictures and paste all together. Then remember, read a lot to your learners, and learners must interact. If they do not do that, and if you don't ask them or ask them to predict what do they think will happen next, then if they do not interact, you know they did not understand or they are not with you. Then use colorful sticky notes to make some ideas to help them to remember. They can even make a little movie in their head. Tell them, while I'm telling you the story, you can see the movie, let it play in your head. It's also a movie making skill that you teach your children. Then word calling is also, remember, important for them, that they can remember this word, like for instance, wolf. I must see the picture of a wolf. Remember, a learner, when a learner regularly reads a passage well, remember, he needs to form a picture, otherwise he will never grasp what you have said. A child tries to remember the exact words when he read, rather than converting the words into pictures. Now, there are different steps. I'm just going to read the basic steps to you. Step 1, the teacher reads a passage aloud. Interaction is important there. The movie making skill is important there. Then, there are different ways they can freeze the picture, rewind, play again. Use those skills. Teach them how to do that. Step 2, now it's the learner's chance to read out loud to you. Let him do the same. Let him recall his movie and tell you. Select a reading passage also that is very easy, so that the child can concentrate on making pictures and not sounding out. Step 3, here the learner gets the chance to read silently. When the learner is successful in reading aloud, he will make small pictures in his mind that will help him. You can get him to read a passage then silently. Ask him to stop a few lines and tell you what he read about. Remember, he read silently, but he tells you afterwards. By this, you help him to create a picture. Then remember, I just want you to remember that if there's no picture, you won't get an answer. If they have a few pictures in their minds, you will get a few answers. But if they have great pictures and they are very eager to tell you, they have great answers. Now remember, the strategy is very simple but also effective. Now let's look at 5 semiotic systems to use in a class. Linguistic, visual, audio, gestural, and spatial. Now, semiotic systems are, for instance, this is where your library also comes in, where you are taking your class to listen maybe to an audio CD, something, a story or sounds. You can incorporate that, but maybe you want them to bring in a visual aspect. Then you will have maybe a short film that you want to show them, but bring that also in your class situation. So there are 5 semiotic systems that you can use in a class situation, and does not necessarily mean you need to do it inside. It can also be outside, but use it that your children can see that. Spatial also, when you go outside to explain to them, this is 5 meters where they actually have to measure that. Bring in those semiotic systems and just make sure you know all 5. Now, let's see how we can create an interesting reading corner to call my kids on to come and read. Now, a class library is very important. Now, we can make different things there. We create suitable for learners. Remember, on your group, is it pre-primary or primary learners? Is it senior learners? You will make a different group and you will create your reading according to that. It can contain books for a multitude of reading levels and topics. It creates a comfortable and inviting reading space. A teacher must inspire learners to love reading. How are you going to do that? By having an inviting reading corner. Interesting reading corners will let them get engaged and relax at the same time. These learners will be inspired and they will easily go fetch a book and sit on the carpet or in the reading corner, on the beanbags, whatever you have there, pillows, to enjoy and read. You can make a list of needs, for instance. How do you create a classroom library that is really organized, and enticing to your young readers. You build a collection of library books. You can either go and borrow from your school's library, or maybe you can get a donation or go to a book den where they are special and maybe buy a few books. Encourage even learners to bring their own books or donate a book to the school. There are many ways to get books. Create a checkout system for your books. It can be a simple notebook where they just write down the title. By this, they also learn what is a title and maybe their grade, or they can just write their name next to it. And then you can decide if they need to write the author's name or not. By this, you also teach your child that the book has an author. It is important to have a method of tracking the books in case it is lost. Then, if you create your wonderful reading corner, by stepping outside the traditional box of classroom spatial planning, you can cultivate a meaningful area for your learner to use. Not only having books there, but maybe crayons and things. Maybe they want to jot down some things also. Hang also nice posters on the wall, but avoid too busy and bright ones that can distract them. But have them, for instance, come and have fun with the reading corner. You can see the new book and then you have it on display there, for instance. Play quiet, soothing music if it's possible. Then reach out to your learners when you feel they will benefit from using the new space. Help them to relax and let that atmosphere there be a inviting, calm, soft one, and allow them to go there. Collaborate with your learners to set clear guidelines also. Then it is strongly recommended that you label the books as it is coming from the library, or if it's your own, just label them. Maybe the green ones are all nature. The red ones are all information, for example. Label them with those different colored sellotape that we can buy. Decide on your own system what you would like to have there. Then it is also a good idea to keep books in book bins, just to sort them that they can be neat and tidy. If you have shelves, it's fine. Then book bins also keep the books organized and neat looking. Allowing learners to help decide on the categories can be a great way to engage them in the library and give them ownership of their own class library. For an example, each book that belongs in a basket or category has a matching colored dot sticker, as I've mentioned, or the colored sellotape. It does not matter, but you will have a system that can work. Think of a creative way that you want to maybe use one day in your classes. Now, let's see. We can demonstrate the features of an effective reading program for pre-primary. Now, remember here, we talk about a reading program. It's different from the previous questions. Please don't get confused, as the questions are very closely related. Effective school reading programs in schools share certain characteristics, from sound methods and materials to quality, professional development, and administrative practices. An effective reading and writing program must be balanced. Remember, with this, they can get sight words, they can get their vocabulary, pre-reading, everything. Now, many factors contribute to the overall success of a beginning reading program. These factors require a total school effort and cannot be accomplished without the support of a school management. Careful use of teaching time. You have to have certain periods and you have to stick to that. Significant time must be planned for a dedicated reading and language teaching. Now remember, language and concept development activities are important in your curriculum. Language instruction includes daily reading, aloud, and discussions of high quality literature. Now, effective educational practices must be in place. Please, you cannot hang on your cell phone and now I need to do this. You may not do that. Effective educational practices means that you are there constantly working with your learners. Teachers organize flexible and purposeful groups that are based on children's educational needs. Teachers provide instructions that involve both frequent interactions with children and they must get constructive feedback. Now, sound educational materials, what are that? Research-based criteria are used to select the educational materials that provide the structure for your classroom program, especially the reading program. Now, reading opportunities must be incorporated. Learners must have access to classroom and school libraries that contain a large and a variety of books collections that are encouraging the children to develop. Now, there must be a wide range for your child to be a fluent reader. There must be a lot of things involved there for your child, and please don't punish them to read. Let them rather have fun in the reading corner. Now, as they read the various kinds of books and other materials, learners learn and practice their comprehension strategies, sometimes even on their own and sometimes with direct help from you as a teacher. Remember, there is a variety of assessment tools. I'm just going to touch on them. You need to know the different ones. Now, the variety regarding the assessment. Now, it is the screening assessment. During the pre-primary and grade 1, every learner is screened for phonemic awareness, alphabetical knowledge, and understanding of basic language concepts. Informal assessments on a regular basis. The children are constantly informally assessed to determine if they are making adequate progress. James used the word with the whole time wrong, but then you keep on evaluating until he says with. End of the year assessment. Every learner is assessed at the end of the year, of the school year then, and then you inform the parents and the school and the regional administrators about your child's progress. A positive school environment is very important, where the management and staff must create school environment that are welcoming their learners and the families. And then the professional development, where the teachers can take part in frequent, relevant, and continuous professional development to help the needs of the learners to enhance that. Then sound administrative and management practices must also be in place. Administrators work to determine that all of the resources of the school, including the staff time, are allocated to meet the goal and the success of your reading. For instance, they can incorporate a reading period throughout the whole school at the same time or different times. That is important to have that in place. Now let's look at an effective reading and writing program. In total, it must be balanced. This means that it will include the teaching of phonemes, phonics, sight words, vocabulary, pre-reading strategies, comprehension strategies, pre-writing activities. Remember, even those little patterns that the children make, that is pre-writing activities, among others. The teacher will read to children. The teacher will read with children. Reading and writing will be done by children. Teacher supports during guided reading and writing. Never ever leave the children unattended. The classroom will be literacy rich. Have some nice posters or rhymes on your walls where they can see that. Then the teacher will expand language and vocabulary through discussions. Remember, as I've mentioned, pre-primary, you have your content on this question as well as DJPE. Please familiarize yourself with your study guide and your presentation. Now, the teachers will do explicit skill instruction, phonemic activities, phonics, sight words, but in an interesting and playful way. How to read a new word or make sense of a new word for those children who are advanced and eager to learn more skills. Remember, there are readiness activities. The teacher will connect the home as well as the school, and by sending home interesting activities, the parents will see what his or her child will be able to do. The teacher does continuous assessment to see where a child needs support and a strategy to go on. The teacher will use a variety of grouping strategies. Remember, you do group work, you can do pair group, you can do individual tasks, you can do peer teaching tasks, you do body reading. There are endless ideas to do of group work. Then the teacher adapts the instruction to support a child. Remember, if you see the child struggles, go a level lower and help the child who needs special attention. The teacher provides a variety of reading and writing texts to get the child familiar with the different texts. To understand a multimodal text, it is necessary to define it. Okay, multimodal, let's look at this word. Multi means more than one. Now in multimodal text, it means it's two or more semiotic systems. Remember we discussed the 5 semiotic systems? Now we use 2 or more of them in a lesson. Now how can we do that? Let us first look at multimodal text can be created using different media or technology. Remember nowadays we are so advanced, we have almost everything available to assist us in our classes. They may be alive. You can get in an author to come and talk to the children, or you can have a drama group or maybe an orchestra. Paper, you have something on paper. You can make copies. They can have each one their own little booklet. Digital, or it can be electronic. You can have maybe a video, or you can have a CD, audio. Remember, it's important to have a multimodal lesson by sharing and having more than one semiotic system. Let's look at to master reading. We need 5 key areas that are very important. Phonemes, word recognition and phonics, comprehension, vocabulary and fluency. Now, a child will never master reading if these 5 key areas are not touched on. For instance, my child learns to read. Now, first I must know, does he or she know the phonemes? Can he or she recognize a word? Does he know he or she the phonics? Can he read the little paragraph and tell me what he can recall? In other words, remember the movie making skill? Vocabulary. Does he or she have the proper vocabulary to retell me the story, or must he look and find the word again? Then fluency. How is he reading? Is he reading word for word? Or can he read at least a phrase? Or does he read the whole sentence on one tone, that it's really not interesting? Those things are important for a child to read. Now, before we do that, you need to know each one. Although you must know the 5 key areas very, very good, you must be able to name them. You must be able to elaborate a little bit so that you are sure what is this concept about, so that you can explain it and know what to assist your child with. Remember, I can mention or just name the 5 key areas, but how am I going to use that in practical situations? So if it's necessary, get the neighbor's child or someone's child or a friend or a cousin and try to test it with the child and see how can I go about this. Now, with that, I hope you will have a fruitful exam. Good luck with your studies, and remember, study hard, because if you don't study hard, you won't gain. And remember, the minute you gain this knowledge and information, you will gain it for the whole world, and nobody can ever take your knowledge away from you. Enjoy that.